I'm Petervary, and I live in Victor, Idaho, and I'm on my way home from Arkansas. I just got done riding the Arkensas High Country Race with the full version, which is 1,000 miles. And I kind of did that in a ITT, individual time trial format, where a fastest known time. That was my attempt, and seemed to have worked out. And I'm here at the Rodeo Labs lab, and gonna go ahead and walk through my Traildonkey.
What was your ITT time?
Let's see here. Covered 1,000 miles in 5 days, 12 hours and 6 minutes. So here we are. This is the Traildonkey I used. Actually, this guy has some history already. It's been to Kyrgyzstan, been to Morocco, even did an Everest on it with some road wheels. And so this is kind of another one to add in that list. But nothing here has changed. I pretty much finished the ride, took the front wheel off, and put it in the back of the van. So what we see is pretty real and live. Nothing's been repacked, and everything down to even my clothing and whatever's in my pack. And so this is size 56 Traildonkey. And let's see here. We have a set of Industry 9 wheel set. This is actually their mountain bike wheel set. They're drawn aluminum spokes. And actually, there's ceramic bearings in them as well. Drivetrain and shifting. Running a GRX kit. Also have the Aerobar blips, which I'm a huge fan of. It definitely eliminates that extra movement all the time when you are on the Aerobars. So I have that paired up with a Easton crank, and I'm running their 3247 chain rings. And I have that mated up with a 1140 XT mountain bike cassette. And it shifts great. And there's nothing additional I needed to do to derailleur into the B tension. I have put other cassettes on there and bigger, and it does get just a little bit more finicky, but I'm really happy with this drivetrain setup. And touching base with the front chain rings, they also make that 3046, which seems to be really popular now, especially in adventure riding. But so I did put the 3247 on there. What I found is I don't shift as much on the front derailleur with it. A little bit of geekery there for sure, but with this type of rolling terrain, a little bit faster, true gravel, not big mountain stuff where you need that really low gear. I like it, and just not shifting as much in the front is a good thing. So when it comes to the luggage of the bike, I kind of went back and forth, and I do go back and forth with different styles, full frame bag, half frame bag, and I knew I was going to need a lot of water here. So I wanted to use a hydration pack, and that pack has a 100-ounce bladder in it, coupled with a couple of water bottles. I ended up having 150 ounces of water at all times, and I needed it. Rock Jice out of North Carolina actually made the bags. These two are actually stock bags of his, and well, actually this one is not a stock bag because I asked for it to be tapered. So this part is much narrower than this part, and that's because I don't want my knees to rub on it. Just kind of particular that way. I bet you there's a lot of people out there that run a stock half frame bag like that probably rubs them and they don't mind, but I do, and so I appreciate him taking care of that detail. The tail fin rack, it's a carbon rack, that's a stock item, and he has his own special bags for it. I went ahead and had this custom made for just what I thought would be a good efficient use, and it turned out to be great. So it's a double roll top, roll end, and it also has some side pockets. It has some compression to it. I could make it a bunch longer if I needed to, and at times when I had to like carry maybe a couple of hamburgers and some extra food, I can just kind of like put all that back in the end and just do a couple of rolls. And then as I ate the food, it became smaller. So I think it worked great. I'm definitely gonna keep working with this style of system. Like I could put a liter of water on top of here and it's still super secure. If you were to try to do that to a seat bag, that thing's going to be all over, and you're not going to be able to even strap it because it doesn't accommodate things like that. Some other bits and pieces of the bike. I run a physique saddle. I run the saddle on every bike I own, and I still like a long nose saddle. I know Short saddle's been getting really popular, but I still like to really get forward, especially when I'm getting aggressive and especially when I'm in the Aerobars. So I want to be up front. So I do appreciate that long saddle. The Cane Creek E-Silk, amazing seat post. That's all I can say. You know, I got one of those last year before DKXL, and they asked me to use it just to kind of give some feedback. And I was like, okay, let me use it. I'll give you some feedback. And it's been on every bike since. It's a no-brainer, really. And I like things that you don't know are there. So I don't feel any movement within it, but at the same time, I know I'm getting some relief from it. So that, coupled with the Redshift stem, is a really good combo, in my opinion, on these types of rides and just gravel riding in general. The stem is really unique because you can kind of feel it in some positions depending on where you're at in the bars. Like when you're in the drops, it doesn't really move on anything. But when you're on the flats, going through some rough terrain, you can actually feel it working in a good way. And when you're in the hoods, if you're out of the saddle, you can almost control it. If you want to get on the front, it might move, but you can also be up and out of the saddle and not make it move. Okay, so the old head clip light Aerobars. This is a pretty neat setup I've been using for a long time. Tried different things, but always come back to it. So it's a multi-piece set here. This guy here is called a Fred bar. And so it mounts on the steerer tube independently from the stem. And it's just basically a dummy bar, but it allows to mount the Aerobars to it. And it does a few different things. One brings the Aerobars back as well as higher. And I know some other Aerobars you do that independently of, but then you don't get the flip up. And to me, this is key to be able to use all the positions of the bike. This is all about comfort. I mean, yeah, of course, if we want to talk about aero, we can, but that's not really the goal of the Aerobars. With long distance riding, I think multi-positions is going to pay off in the end. And I have bad carpal tunnel and things, and so just being able to get into them and relax a little bit and rest, actually. And yeah, you can gain another mile an hour, but that's not really the goal. It's more of just another position and resting. So a little bit of electronic stuff up here. So this is what I use for my navigation. I actually did something different this time. I'm an eTrex guy, which is a handheld battery unit. This is the first time I didn't use that. And I went ahead and just used, this is an 830 coupled with their battery. And you can get a lot of time out of this system. I bet you 48 hours. It's pretty impressive. And then here's a front light. Just a Phoenix flashlight, super bright, has 5 different settings. And this is mounted to this this is a Barfly universal mount, just to kind of move things around as I need it. We'll show you what's on the inside. JP has no secrets.
What's in the box?
Okay, let's see what he ended up with. Remember when I said I don't know what I'm gonna have? I just put the bike away. This is obviously my food container. Oh, a bunch of empty food. I had 1 bar left. 1 bar and 2 goo. That's not bad. So that's it. A bunch of garbage in there and food. That's what that was. This little bungee guy is great for the map. I'm constantly looking at the map. I didn't know the route. It's not like I studied it a ton beforehand, so I'm just always looking at it. There's services and things on here. This is an official Adventure Cycling Association route. And so we just kind of follow that. And these maps are amazing. Highly suggest supporting them. Okay, what's in the half frame bag? Let's see. Good question. Talked about batteries. Here's one battery bank.
20,000?
10.
10?
So what happens though is I carry 2 10,000s because I like the size of them. They fit they're a little flatter, and I can kind of store one even in the back of my jersey pocket if I need to connect something to it. And it just seems a little easier for me. And then I keep my electronics in a little different spot. I'd never listened to my little pod there.
But you have it?
But I have it. The terrain was just so dynamic and interesting. I just didn't need it. And here's a little charger, double guy. There again, I like the size of it. It's flat. And then 2 cords, 1 USB and then 1 for my phone. And then I actually carry 2 other cords that are in my pack just in case they wet out, the end gets corroded, or just something breaks. So these are the batteries I was talking about. These guys are a little cool because you can charge with them.
And that goes into the headlight.
So then these are...
I was wondering.
Yep. And so these little guys are great. And, and they're, so I'm not like, they're not disposable. They're reusable. Batteries can start to get expensive, things like that. You can see I have such a big medical kit here. It's got aspirin, ibuprofen, contacts, and the 4 painkillers I've been carrying around for probably 10 years that I haven't taken. It's just an emergency. I've been carrying them around forever. Yep. Toothpaste, toothbrush. Yep, cut in half. I had 4, these are chloride tabs for water. I never had to use them, but just in case.
Boy, that is minimal.
And then gotta have zip ties. I kind of keep them separate. They're kind of be a pain sometimes where you want to put them. And then here's that extra battery. And I'll show you something here, what I do. This is my battery. You can see the battery's not in the frame. It's not in the seat tube. There's a little sleeve up here that it's tucked into.
Ooh, that's cool.
And so, and I do this on the roll, and I had to during the ride. I seen the beginning about with a front derailleur, I seem to get between 600 to 700 miles per battery, and that's very consistent. That's like 4 times that's happened to me now, and just doing it on the run is like super easy.
So no Di2 charger, none of that business, just an extra battery.
Just an extra battery. I've been carrying the charger and all that stuff, but I guess I'm trusting it and it's not as remote. Okay, so this is going to be some typical bike repair. Surprising I didn't need the extra brake pads. I'm pretty big on tube and tire repair. I always have a few pins, needle, thread, and some extra plugs, some real glue, tire boot, and then you'll see I do carry 1 Tubolito tube, but then a regular tube as well. And then 1 strap, just for the rack in case something went wrong there. A derailleur hanger, a cleat, retaining bolt, and that's it. And then a bigger piece of the repair kit. I'm all about repair. I just pretty proud to fix things on the trail. So a brush.
Oh, you got a full-size brush.
So look at that guy. Learned something there. It spun off. I'm not a huge fan of these style of pumps because you can twist out your valve core. I typically do carry like the flip style, but I know better. And you know what? It happened to me, and I even knew it. But
it almost makes you want to Loctite your valve cores.
Lube. So it looks like I went through Dumont-Tech lube. I use it for every single ride, winter or summer. 2/3. Special little tool there. Gotta have a rag, which is still damp because of that crazy humidity. Look at the corrosion. So wolf tooth pliers. A multi-tool that has long keys. Note that. It's not a stubby little deal. So I can reach everything.
Is that crank rollers?
Yep. And then an extra valve.
Looks like you brought this stuff up from the bottom of the seat.
No, I can't believe it. This is the first time I was there. And then I keep a separate chain brake. This is Pedal Edge lightest weight shorts. Really thin material, felt really nice in the heat. This stuff will all be burned, by the way. It's still super stiff. Pair of Swiftwick socks, compression socks, love them. And I ended up having to use a tank top undershirt. On night one, I lost my jersey. Don't ask me how. Actually, I know how. I had it here. I put it on here. It was my fault. I didn't put it on really secure, but it was nighttime. I was soaking wet, and I just wanted to get this wet jersey off. And so I carried, I'm using this shirt for quite a while. I have a couple of them, but just a sun shirt, long sleeve sun shirt. So, but in the nighttime, if you start to cool off, especially if you're dehydrated. So I did. I wanted to put this on. I put my jersey here, and the next day I went to go look for my jersey and I didn't have it.
So about what mile can people go scavenge the course?
Yeah, you get that about mile 150, I bet.
Yep,
between 150 and 190, exactly.
Trail swag.
So that's a piece of kit there. Let's see what I have tucked in the sides. Some short finger. These are actually time trial gloves, no padding. Very simple, but cuts down on the calluses. Looks like I had an emergency can of Red Bull that never made it. This is the only thing I didn't use. And these are actually sun sleeves. They never came out now that I see them. Never used those. Spare CO2 in the midst of it all. Empty can. What else am I going to find? Sunscreen. Use that a bit. There's CO2. I ended up picking up a couple of more CO2s because I did have to air back up after plugging, and so they just ended up random. All right, let's see what we got in here. This is going to be interesting. Here's a tracker, kind of mandatory for all the events. This is a trace, actually, so very simple. No emergency functions, no extra buttons. Turn it on, leave it be, and that's it. And the trace model, actually, the batteries last the longest versus traditional spot, or Gen 3 or whatever you call it. Looks like I had some Arby's, more garbage. It's starting to stink in here, I could tell. Oh, here's something else I didn't use. I did have long finger gloves. Never needed them. They're still damp, this stuff. This is actually a pretty neat system, just as an FYI. So this is a kind of a wind covering on it as well, wind rain covering.
Who makes that?
So this is a pedal lead glove as well. I like these a lot. Been wearing them a lot over the past year. So just a 2-in-1 type of thing. Like I said earlier, I got some hand problems, and usually I have many gloves and even expedition gloves, but I did get to Arkansas early, so I did a tour for a few days, which really helped out with my clothing choices and my gear choices, because when I packed in Idaho in the mountains, when our high is only 60 degrees, I definitely had more stuff there, thinking I was going to use it. But the Arkansas low was higher than the Idaho's high that I've been in. So this is taking up most of the space. This was, I guess, call it my sleep kit. And I used it once. It was folded up, and then I used it the first night. You couldn't sleep with anything.
Just full send, no tents, no bivvies, no any of that.
Nothing,
Just
left it all. I always carry rain pants, never warm, but that's nothing I would never leave behind. I did have a spare pair of socks that I never wore. I did wear my underwear when I did lay down a couple of times, more or less just to absorb some moisture and things, try to dry myself out. Self-care and maintenance is important if you want to last. I didn't end up with any rashes or anything, and I'm pretty psyched on that stuff. Rain jacket that I wore probably a few times, and actually a lot of times instead of laying out the space blanket because they make a lot of noise, I just lay this on the ground and then just lie on that. Generally, I might take my shoes off if it's going to be an amount of time, and put my feet up on top of my bike as well to try to get some of that swelling down. it. Let's see here, what's left. I used these Physique double Velcro shoes, super comfortable. I actually have a custom insole in there, but that's great. And then I wore the pack. And what is in here? It's probably going to be things I want quick access to. So I have eye wetting drops, spare contacts. I keep a whistle tethered in. And what else is in here? Some electrolyte tabs. So that's that. I keep my wallet right here. So when I had this on, wallet's here. I could walk into the store. I had my mask tucked away in here. I had my hand sanitizer and spray in here. And so that was like, I felt very comfortable doing that. And it was just like a constant, became very natural. And so very convenient to have that stuff at your fingertips. And some lip balm and an inhaler. I have pretty bad asthma, and I definitely had to control my effort because the air was so thick sometimes. And I can definitely feel that, and I have to really concentrate. But that's just something I deal with. I've been dealing with it forever, but it was a different type of dealing with that humidity. And then this also has some side pockets. I actually sewed the Velcro in there to keep them shut. And tons of, I probably took 100 electrolytes, just constantly eating them. Nothing in that pocket. And then typically in here is going to be toilet paper, chamois cream, things like that. Logic there is, I'm going to go to the bathroom. I probably need to take my pack off anyway, so then the toilet paper's right at my hands. And then there's a couple of spare cables in case those other ones broke. And there's still even room in here when it's full. And so when I stopped, I also needed to get another tube because I was concerned. But so I always had backup. Never used the stuff, but
get some sealing in there as well.
Yeah, and I didn't start with any, but after I had to plug up, I lost some sealing. I was like, I'm here. I'm just gonna get this stuff too. When you're at mile 800, you're like, nothing's gonna stop you now. So just get the stuff and carry it, Jay. And then it's a 2-map system, so then my spare map also goes here. And that is 100%. Besides, I had a LEM helmet that weighs 200 grams, which is super nice on the head. And that also had an additional Phoenix light on top of the helmet. And a pair of sunglasses. And if you've seen any of the pictures, you've seen I was wearing this big headdress buff that I just kind of cut in half. And I've been doing that for years, and it helps a lot to kind of just keep that heat off your neck and your ears and things. And it's also good just to have a rag around and wipe yourself. And now I think that would be 100%. You know, this is a fun part for me. I like to share this part as well with people, but just like doing different things, trying different things. You know, I stated like that was the first time I just only used that type of Garmin. That rear setup is different, and just that kind of stuff is super fun for me. And I'm okay with risking and trying certain things. And all in all, I learned a lot again, and I really enjoyed the route. It's very demanding. You know, 84,000 feet and 1,000 miles is just as stout as any other event out there, probably more so, probably more climbing than most of the events out there. Per mile, it's way more than Tour Divide, for sure. And there's no way to catch any rhythm. You're not going to just sit down and bang out 30, 40 miles. There's always turning terrain up and down. The surface would change. It was littered with pieces of pavement also. So I call that like more of a mixed surface ride, and I really enjoy that. The services, if you were to look at maps and you're preparing for something like this, you might think there's a lot of services. When I first looked, I was like, oh, service is going to be no problem. But the reality is all these little mercantile towns and small places where it's one store, the hours were super, they weren't open late. So like if I wasn't stocked up by 5 o'clock every evening, meaning I have to go from 5 o'clock through the night into the next day. If I wasn't stocked up before 5, there was a good chance you weren't getting anything. So I learned that pretty quickly, even when I was touring. So it's just something you got to really pay attention to, especially with the food. So I'd consider that a bit more of a challenge than one may think. It's very lush, a lot of trees. It was hot, but there was a lot of canopy. I mean, there's some exposure, but a lot of canopy.
Bugs?
No bugs. No animals. I seen a bit of scat. There's actually bears there. I didn't realize that. So I learned some things about Arkansas, and I highly suggest it. Don't write it off. And I'm looking forward to going back, honestly. It's a really cool culture. I've been fortunate enough to be able to go to a lot of places and ride my bike, and the one thing I love is the people and just having a small conversation and just some words, especially with the small places. And on several occasions, I heard, "Now you go home and you tell all your cyclist friends to come back here now," and that just I just love that.